Hey everyone, trying to get the stream set up. Looks like we're having a bunch of lag. Don't know what that's about. Um, Let me see if I can fix it really quickly. I don't really want to start drawing if it's gonna be super laggy. Let me see if I can do something about that. Okay, think I think I fixed it. It's like OBS Studio just randomly disconnected. I don't even know why. Every time I try to stream, something stupid has to happen, and it kind of just deters me from streaming. But I'm committed to it, so I'm just gonna push through. Just fair warning until I get like my new setup and everything. Quality wise, the stream may be a little laggy, or the audio might not be the greatest, but I'm just gonna draw, man. And if you want to stick around and watch, you can. If you don't want to, uh, completely understandable. But, I'm just gonna do my best. But if anybody's in here, feel free to say hey. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, feel free to drop them down there. Looks like my casting software is not working. Okay, there we go. But yeah, if you want to ask any questions, if you have questions about my process, just want to talk about art, whatever, you know, feel free. I can see chat from here, so I'll be good. I'm going to do one thing though. It said turn my video settings down, and I don't think I want to do that. Um, I feel like that would mess things up. Oh goodness, did I just crashed. Dude. Okay, we're just gonna leave that alone. Uh, Alrighty. I'm just gonna get drawing. Uh, I don't really know if this is looking okay. Just gonna give it one quick like gloss over to see if it looks okay. And I'm gonna start. Other than that, just gonna give it a go. First, I think I'm just gonna do some warming up. Obviously, I want to work on this piece right here. Um, but before I do all that, kind of just want to warm up a little bit. So I'm going to open up a different project, just blank canvas kind of thing, and just paint something. If anybody has any suggestions as far as characters, anything like that, feel free to throw them down. Um, can't guarantee that I'll actually draw them, but you know, I might. Welcome, Drew. Welcome, welcome. Since you're here, is it like super laggy? Like, does the drawing look relatively like clear? I guess I don't know what my question is. It's fine. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Just wanted to make sure. I kid you not. Every time I start streaming, suddenly like everything stops working. It's really, really like deterring because I'm the kind of person who tries to plan for everything. And so when I do all that planning and then I start it and it's just like, hey, how many times can we crash in 5 minutes? It kind of just makes me not want to stream. But like I said, I just want to get some drawing done. So I'm just gonna push through it, man. I feel that. Yeah. It's cool though. It's cool. This is temporary. I'm gonna get a better streaming setup. I know I've said that like the last time I streamed, but it is true. I'm just kind of working on some things before I get it done. Life kind of, doesn't really wait for you to do things, so I am working on getting a better setup, but I still have other things that are a little bit more pressing. I just got home from swimming class. I'm tired. I have a headache, so I'm not gonna stay too long. All good, all good. I'll just draw here alone, sad and alone. No big deal. Not like I needed you, anyways. Swimming class, that's cool though. Did you make anything? That's how I feel when you're not there in my streams. Ah, fine. Okay. I guess it's just payback. Apologies for having a life. And I get it. It is kind of like awkward when there's nobody watching. Like that's how it normally is when I'm not streaming, but when you are streaming with the sort of like expectation of people being there, and especially since like I do it because I want to be able to interact with people and like talk about stuff. Doesn't even have to be art related, but when you choose to stream and then you're just sitting there drawing by yourself, you're like, I might as well just turn the stream off if nobody's there. In the process of adding stuff to my pants I don't wear. It's my first time doing this for this one. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Gotcha. That sounds cool. Sewing is something that's like on my bucket list of like things to learn. Not necessarily because I want to do it often, but I feel like it's one of those skills that you should just have, even if you only like use it once in your life. I feel like there's always an opportunity. Like there's just like a set number of scenarios that like will happen in your life where you'll need a certain skill, and I feel like sewing is one of those. You know, like that. It's like anything related to cars, replacing a tire. It's just like those things where it's like you may go your entire life without ever needing to do that, but the chances of you needing that skill are still high enough that it's worth learning. If you don't know who I'm drawing by now, congratulations, you are a LARPer. Get out of the stream. Yeah, I'm doing it because I want to upcycle and make some of my own pieces. Okay, cool, cool, cool. I've heard quite a lot about upcycling. I think it's pretty cool. Sorry, only real fans allowed here. No LARPers allowed. If you haven't played every single game and read every single comic book, you're not a real one. Faker. You should just never interact with that media at all, ever again. I love this brush. This brush is so fun to use. Clearly, this is satire. I'm not being serious. I haven't even played all of the Resident Evil games. I've played most of them, and I own nearly all of them now. But I have not played all of them yet. I do plan to do a bit of a marathon for myself, playing them in order, since I have. I would say, I'm not, again, I'm never going to call myself an expert on any of this stuff, but I'm relatively, like, I'm more knowledgeable of Resident Evil stuff than, I guess, your average, like, just casual Resident Evil enjoyer or player. Um, so I have most of the ones that are important to the story, if not all of the ones that are important to the story. And I want to do like a little bit of a Resident Evil marathon, just play through all of the games. Plus, well, I'm mainly doing it because Code Veronica is, you know, on its way, and I want to make sure I'm, all caught up on my Resident lore. You should stream it. Stream the Resident Evil playthrough. Brother, if you haven't noticed by now, every time I try to do anything more than literally just screencasting my iPad to YouTube, my laptop tries to game end itself. I do not have the facilities to stream any game. It could be a mobile game. I don't think I have the capability to stream at the moment. In the future, maybe, maybe. I don't know if I want to be like a gamer, like a YouTube gamer. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a gamer. Um, and there's nothing wrong with being a YouTube gamer either. I don't know if, well, one, I don't know if people want to see that, because usually when I, subscribe to an art channel, I subscribe to see art. Um, that was weird. Sorry about that. Screen just kind of went crazy. Normally I subscribe to art channels to see artwork, but if there was enough demand for it, I would consider potentially doing something like that. But as of right now, I don't know if I want to stream games. There's also, like, I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but there's also this sort of like pressure to perform when it comes to like recording or streaming video games or anything in general, right? Like, there's the attitude that you have when you're just playing the game naturally on your own time, and then there's like the attitude that you have for like YouTube, where it's like, here's my heightened reactions to everything, and you know, here's my live commentary on all this stuff that's happening that realistically I'd probably hold off on till the end of the game, or I would, I wouldn't react in certain ways or like as, over the top as I would if I was just playing for myself. So I don't know if I want to sort of like, I feel like in a way I could ruin my enjoyment of something because I feel like I have to play it in the way that people are expecting me to for a stream, if that makes any sense. So I don't know why I'm putting so much detail into this. This isn't even the main thing that I'm supposed to be drawing. I just get caught up sometimes. And I really like this brush. It's really not important. I feel that, I've honestly stopped gaming. I just work and write, but I've been pretty good this last month playing guitar and me starting art again and doing creative stuff. Yeah, like I feel like there are some things that should just exist for the sake of being enjoyed personally. Like I like streaming. I like being able to show people my, art process and talk to them while I draw and everything. But there was a point in my art journey and career where I, despised the idea of streaming because I was still improving and, art, it was fun, but it wasn't at the point where I could turn off my brain enough to call it like fun while I do something else. Like there was a time where I just could not draw like and talk to people because I needed like the brain power because of like the skill level that I was at where I couldn't perform well enough. If that makes sense. Or I couldn't execute anything well enough without using, you know, or putting like near 100% of my focus into the art itself. Whereas now, not to say that I've become some like pro or master or anything, but I've gotten to a point where now some of the steps that I take to make this stuff doesn't require all of my, you know, willpower and life force. um, so I feel a bit, better about that. We are going to flip the canvas. Real scary. Ready? It's either going to be the ugliest thing in the world or, you know, not bad. Not bad. Not bad. Um, I think his head is too big, but that is an easy fit. This is the rectangle select. Okay. Um, yeah, his head is a bit too large. Got a lot on his mind, and that's okay. I can relate to that, but maybe we just shrink it down a little bit. I also feel like his nose isn't the nose that I'm like. I don't know. There's something about the face that I'm not like super crazy about, even though I shouldn't really care because this is again, like I said, a warm up, and yet I'm putting way too much thought into it. And I'm thinking about the fact now that if someone were to see the thumbnail for this stream or the Instagram post I put out to let people know I was streaming, and then they click on the stream, they're probably like, "This is not what you said you were drawing," and they would be correct. So I'm not going to spend too much more time on this because I'm not a clickbaiter. Big old cranium. Yep, yep. His lobe definitely developed. uh, the reason I love this brush is because I get to focus on the big shapes. And yet I'm trying to put small details with this gigantic brush. Okay. I think that is. I'm not gonna say satisfactory because it's something. I just don't think satisfactory is the word. I'm gonna take this whole side of the head and just squish it, and that looks weird. I don't like it. See, this is the kind of stuff that I wanted to show people. Like, the process is not pretty, you know, and that's okay. It's not supposed to be. Like, the end result is really, but I don't want to say that. The process matters, but the process doesn't have to be some kind of masterpiece, right? We're saving that for the end. So, just like all of my rough sketches or whatever, like they're rough because they're supposed to be. I'm trying to get an idea down. I'm not trying to make the final piece in the beginning that defeats the entire purpose. A good start. Exactly. Yes, it's a good start. That's kind of all you need. Um, this neck. How do I feel about that? I feel like his neck is wrong and it needs to be corrected. Okay. I think I think I'm happy with that. Think I'm happy with that. I wanted to do side profile English. I wanted to do a side profile because I feel like, artists have a tendency to kind of just hit the like, hey guys, look, another three-quarter portrait with the character looking, at something off to the opposite side. And it's like, hey, not hating on that, do what you gotta do. There's a reason why people default to the three-quarter pose. It's pretty classic. It's pretty recognizable, and then you get to do that, cool little shadow thing that everybody wants to do with all their characters because we're just addicted to it at this point. But you gotta do other angles, other poses. You can't stick with three-quarter forever. So, but basically, I'm going to give you. This will be essentially one. It'll My brain's moving too fast, and I'm trying to catch up to what my brain is thinking with my words, and it's not working. This is going to double as two things right now. One, it's going to be just a short, quick demo of like how I work, um, and how I would kind of go to something semi-finished, if you will. And then two, for me, it's going to be a test to see how quickly I can sort of get to that like semi-finished look. Um, because I've been refining my process over the past couple of months, I would say. But more recently, the past few weeks is where I really kind of felt like I was making bigger strides. So I'm going to basically just show you how I would kind of go to the next step. But I'm gonna try to do this relatively quickly so we can get back to the other piece. I'm just gonna kind of look at it in the way that I have been doing this. You got this? Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thankfully, this process that I have now is one where, I can kind of stop at multiple different points and call it like finished, which is really nice. So I'm not gonna like render it, forever and ever, but just I'm gonna show you how I would go about getting to that semi-finished look to where it's like, okay, from now I'm just polishing, but I'm not necessarily like making, huge changes or, like laying things in it. Just kind of like, you know, adding stuff, polish, you know. And basically I have this brush. I call it, well, I've labeled it as ink paint because that's what it feels like. Basically just this kind of big brush that, is pretty sensitive when it comes to pressure. Um, but like if I, push down hard, I can get these like really inky lines, but less pressure and it kind of feels like this. And I just like it because like it kind of blends into whatever's underneath it. Uh, and I feel like I can kind of sculpt with it really well. And I like that feeling of like, oh, okay, I'm building up values and I'm, sort of, carving out forms and it feels very natural to use. And it feels like it just complements my style really well. Um, because, on paper, like I build things up with pencil, kind of in a similar way where it feels like I'm kind of sculpting and bringing out the forms. And so this brush feels the closest to that without being a pencil because I like painting. If I wanted a pencil effect, I could, obviously just pick like a pencil brush, but I like painting, but I also like that sort of control that I get. Um, so yeah, that's that's what I'm using. So are you gonna go back to this sewing class, Drew, or was it like a one-time thing and then you're gonna sort of like do it on your own now? I mean, I do need a mouse. Okay, let's try that again. I get you. I need to start finding brushes to do more shading and like light studies. Yeah, honestly, if you ask me, which maybe you're like, bro, I did not ask, um, but I'm gonna answer anyways. Uh, Round brush, like it's okay. I'm gonna, I'll admit it. The round brush kind of sucks. Like nobody really likes. Well, I'm not gonna say nobody. I feel like most of the people I know that paint similarly to me aren't the biggest fan of the round brush because it's so like aggressive. But it really does help you with like just kind of separating things as far as like, okay, this is light, this is shadow, and then building up from there. Because it's such harsh shapes when you place it down. There's no like softness to it. And so you're kind of building up your brain as thinking it as far as these, big distinctions of like, okay, this is again like this is light, this is dark. Um, and I feel like that is just really, really valuable. But I can understand why someone would not want to use that because I personally don't use it anymore. I used it to learn, but as soon as I kind of felt that I was in a spot, not necessarily where I didn't need to learn anymore, but I didn't need to learn with that brush, I moved on. Oh yeah, as long as she hosts when I'm not at work. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's kind of how I feel about a lot of things that go on for me. Like I just don't have the energy to go straight from working to something else, even if it's something that I would enjoy. It's like people will host these things on very specific days that I feel like are kind of universally agreed upon as like this is the day where you work and then you kind of do nothing else. Like this is a work day. This is dedicated to our 9 to 5s that we really don't like. Um, and people will host events on those days, and I'm like, dude, nobody's gonna come to this. And if they do, maybe it's because they have their day off. But most people, even if they have their day off, it's because they want to rest. They want to do something at home. So why is the event on that day? You know? And then I end up just not going, even though I really would have enjoyed the event. It's like, how much enjoyment can I get out of it if I'm like dead exhausted? Feel me? Yeah, it's either that or they host events for an hour and then that's it. That's what I'm saying too. That, oh my gosh, that gets on my nerves. Like, and they're always the like coolest events, and they host it for no more than an hour. And it's like, dude, you can't host it for an hour and then also have it start at like 5. Like, I just got off of work. By the time I get there, there's like 20 minutes left of the event. What am I supposed to do? And it's always like a one-time event too. So you're like, great, it's just never happening again. It's the worst, man. Like, makes me so angry when that kind of stuff happens. Like, know your audience and cater to that audience. Pretty dumb. Yep. It is very, very dumb. And it really bothers me because it happens so often and there's nothing I can do about it except for like do my own events. But I think we've talked about that enough. Um, I don't always want to be the person who has to start things just because I want to see that change. I'm all for like, be the change you want to see in the world, but why does it feel like you've always got to be that person? Like, surely I'm not the only one who has, clearly, I mean, we're talking about it. Clearly, I'm not the only one who has these feelings. It was nice talking to you. I have a splitting headache for some reason. I got to work at 6. So talk to you later, man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks for stopping by, man. You know, I always appreciate it. Uh, Otherwise, I'd be sitting here in a void. Hope you feel better, though. Get some rest. You got work tomorrow. Um, I will catch you later. Okay, I'm gonna try to blast through this. I don't need every part of this thing to be overly rendered. And I'm staying zoomed out on purpose. If I zoom in too much, I'm gonna start getting caught up in details. I mean, even at this distance, I still kind of just fell into that trap. So, you have to be aware of your strengths and weaknesses and do whatever it takes to not, you know, fall into like those habits continually. So for me, that means that I have to zoom out, which is a pain. I'm really fighting the urge to zoom in, but I know that this is for the better, so I'm gonna work with it. This eyes. Hmm. Oh, that wasn't right. At some point, I should probably change the stream name, which I think I'll do right now. Actually, give me 1 second. Uh, okay. Okay. Yeah, this eye is just not doing it for me. So we're gonna clean it up. I want to zoom in so badly, but I know that I shouldn't. hair is still something that I feel like it's a bit of a weak spot for me. I don't think I'm necessarily bad at it, but I think a lot of it is kind of just like me coming up with it as I go. And I don't want to feel that way. Um, I've realized that sort of. I only really like that in the sketching part of my process. I do not like making things up along the way past that point. Uh, it makes me uncomfortable and it makes the whole drawing process a lot slower because I'm not informed on what I'm doing. It's not, like natural to me. And I've just come to realize that I'm not comfortable with that. Um, some artists are. I am not them. So even kind of now with this hair, like I'm not completely clueless, but there are parts of it that I'm sort of making up on the spot, and I don't like that. Hmm. Yeah, I think it's this piece right here. See, the thing is, I don't know. I mean, I kind of know, but like I'm so used to drawing Requiem Leon's haircut that RE4 Leon. It's not that I'm not familiar with it. That is my favorite version of Leon, probably. But sometimes I can forget just how similar their hairdos. Like Requiem Leon, his hair I think is for the most part the same as RE4 Leon, but I'm sure there's some nuanced differences I haven't paid extra close attention to, and it's showing here. That's okay. Anyone who joined the stream to watch me paint God of War, sorry, I wasn't warmed up, so I went and started drawing Leon, and I'm a bit I'm a bit attached. And I really shouldn't be spending too much time on this because I've got like 50 other drawings in the draft that I could be working on. So to start a new one would be pretty bad. It's not the first time I've done this. As always, if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, don't be afraid to drop them. Or if you just want to stop by and say hello, that is also cool. can zoom in a tiny bit. Yes, that's I mean, this is kind of a process in a nutshell. It's just kind of push and pull. Just kind of sculpting. There's a new brush that I've been messing around with. I'm gonna use it on the God of War piece. It's just a little bit more painterly, and I really like that about it. Um, I don't know where I was going with that statement. It feels like a natural progression of this brush, and the reason why I like this brush. Um, and if I want to experiment with that, and if I like it, it might become my new go-to, which would be cool. The values here are getting real crunched up. They don't look good. I'm kind of not liking this angle that I chose for the face now. Don't know why, but it's kind of like it's not growing on me. It's shrinking on me, I guess. Um, yeah, I don't know. Not really a fan of it. I do like that a little better. I think maybe his hair was just too big, but yeah, I don't know. Not super crazy about this, which is okay because this is kind of a throwaway piece of sorts, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Definitely not my favorite. Not a fan of this nose. I'm gonna change that up. Okay. Depending on what happens tomorrow, I may also stream tomorrow. We shall see. No promises, but I may or may not stream tomorrow, depending on what goes down. I'm looking forward to Code Veronica, though. I do want to play the original first before I try the new one, obviously. And there's plenty of time for me to do that. But it was already on my list of games to play. Um, but now that the new one's coming out, I feel like it gave me a kind of new boost of desire to play it. Um, but like I said, I'm going to do a Resident Evil marathon for myself. Just try to make my way through all the games in chronological order. So that would be very fun. I've already played a fair amount of Resident Evil games, the older ones at least. That's actually, I don't know if those are considered the old ones. I played OG RE4. That is currently my favorite game ever. Which I feel like is such a basic answer now. Seems like everybody says that, but it really does live up to the hype, man. And I just played it like recently, and it's such an amazing game. It really is. Like even for like how old it is, it's an amazing game. Like it really shocked me when I played it. I expected it to be like I didn't expect it to age so well, and it really did, and that shocked me. Love the remake though. Love the remake. Um, Remake I think is fantastic, and it kind of reinvigorated my excitement for Resident Evil because I hadn't felt that for a while. I hadn't even like properly played Resident Evil 2 remake when 4 remake dropped. I'd seen some playthroughs of it, but I never got into it. I didn't even own it for a while. But I played 4 remake and kind of just brought back that sort of like fun and that atmosphere and vibe that I kind of like expect from Resident Evil. And then I played 2 remake, played 3 remake. We don't talk about 3 remake. Really wanted to like that game. Really wanted to believe that people were just hating on it for other reasons. But man, is that a difficult game to get through. It is so. I mean, at least for me, it was not enjoyable at all. Um, like just in so many different ways, and it hurt because I was like, I thought they were just like hating this game because it's Jill, or like I really wanted to defend the game, and, like play it, and then go like, you guys are just like being silly, or something like that. But I personally did not enjoy the game, and don't plan to replay it at any point. Um, I will try out the OG RE3 at some point. Um, Probably when I do my marathon, but that will be the only version of RE3 that I ever touch again. The remake was not fun at all. Really sorry to anybody who was expecting me to draw God of War. Did not mean to go off on this tangent with Leon. I'm kind of stuck here now. Next stream, I will 100% start working on that God of War piece. Hmm. There's something about this mouth that is off to me. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna do it until I figure it out. Flip it again. Just a little bit better. I'm more content with that look than I was with the other one. Let's see. I want to add channel here. Okay. I want him to look like too aged. It's supposed to be RE4 Leon, so he's like 26, I believe. 26 years old. RE4. He's 21 in RE2. And then, yeah, I believe RE4 takes place 5 years after. Yeah, he's approaching Unk status by the time we get to RE4. Okay, just get these shirt details in. Here, this up this way. If there's anyone in chat, what is your favorite video game of all time, basically? The top three games, if I had to narrow it down, um, in no particular order because I love all of these games for different reasons, so I can't necessarily put one of these above the other because they're so different. But I would say Resident Evil 4, the OG, is up there. Um, then what else? Journey. Journey is a fantastic game. Highly recommend it to any and all who are watching and willing to play a new game. Journey is amazing. Um, And let's see, what else? What would be my third? It's a game that I could keep playing. I always come back to. I feel like Kingdom Hearts. I feel like Kingdom Hearts is up there. Like it's both literally one of my favorite games ever, but also not. But I feel like anytime I come back to it, I feel like welcome. You know what I mean? Like it's so inviting. It's such an inviting game. I really like that about it. It's confusing. Like it's all outdoors. It's extremely confusing game. Um, there's a meme I saw somewhere, or not a meme, but it was like a Reddit post where someone was asking, do they need to play, Kingdom Hearts 1 through 3 to understand Kingdom Hearts 4? And someone responded to them and said, you could play Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, 3, all the story DLC and expansions 6 times each every year, and you still would not know what's going on in Kingdom Hearts 4. And it sucks because it's true, but it's because Kingdom Hearts was never, at least from my knowledge of it, it wasn't supposed to be this like super story rich video game. It kind of turned into that because it was, more successful than I think the original creators had expected it to be. And after that, it was kind of like, oh shoot, we basically just created an IP that people want to see more of, and they actually care about the story and don't just want to play in different Disney worlds just because they can. I'm sure there's some people who play Kingdom Hearts and they're like, I'm just there to play in different Disney worlds, but I think for the most part, Kingdom Hearts fans, got invested in the story and the characters, and I think the creators kind of they didn't necessarily anticipate that. And here we are, 4 games in, 4 main games in, and none of us know what's going on. And I think that's hilarious because now, whenever I meet someone and I talk to them about Kingdom Hearts, which is very rare, honestly, um, and they ask me what it's about, what's the story, I'm just like, great question, fantastic question, actually. That's like one of the questions of all time. What is the story of Kingdom Hearts? Trying to explain it to them is definitely a bit of a challenge. And I don't claim to be a Kingdom Hearts expert, so that makes it even worse because I'm just like, this game is really good. And they're like, oh, what's it about? I'm like, it's really just about the vibes. uh, no, I mean, I love Kingdom Hearts. I will be a Kingdom Hearts defender for as long as the creators stay out of any drama. I'm leaving his knife holster empty because I don't want to draw the knife. Is it lazy? Yes. Do I really care? No. This wasn't even supposed to be like a full finished piece anyway, so I'm not too worried about the knife not being in his holster. Let's just pretend he's holding the knife off screen or off void because body also isn't there either. Uh, creative choice. Let's call it that. Creative liberty. it is funny seeing like, you know, I just did that Hulk piece. If you see my Instagram, if you're here from Instagram, I just did that Hulk piece for my dad's birthday, and that took uh, 16 hours to do, um, which I'm never doing that much cross hatching again. Um, just wanted to do that for my dad, and I would do it for pretty much any family member, but I would, if possible, like to avoid that much cross hatching, at least in the way that I did it, if possible, because it was just too much. I think it was just too much. But it was cool to see just how much you could get away with and how many creative liberties you could take by just using, like black and white, um, with the inking. Obviously, I went, over it afterwards with, some values and color and everything. But for the most part, just when I was doing the inking initially, uh, it was very cool. Sort of feel a little bit freed in that sense of like, it's not realism, so you don't have to like overly stress about the values of everything and blending and all this blah 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 blah. Not that you can just turn your brain off and crosshatch and call it a day, but there's a bit of a freedom to it to not be like semi-real or overly realistic with any one thing, and I like that a lot. Wasn't a fan of the process. You live and you learn. And I did all that, and now I know what not to do again. So I would say in that way, it was worth it. Yeah, I really do like this brush because, like I said, I can kind of just sculpt stuff with it, and it feels so natural. I can just, color select, move stuff around. If I don't like it, I go over it. I can blend and I can do all this stuff, and it's just very, very intuitive. And that's kind of what I need right now. I need a brush that doesn't feel like I'm fighting against it to make it work. I need it to work with me. So find this brush. It's a gem. It's a real gem. Gem discovered. And I'm not zooming in, too much. That's important as well. You don't want to zoom in too much out of this stage. Just laying things in. You zoom in and it's like, oh, that's kind of just ugly. But you zoom out a little bit and it's like, okay, I know what it reads as. I know what it's supposed to be, and that's all that matters there. I'm still not like overly a fan of this particular painting, but I just gotta be okay with that. I don't even know why. See, that's the thing. I have no clue why. But at some point, I just stopped liking it. I have no clue why. But see how sculpty like I can get with it. Sorry, I was just scratching my ear. I know that probably sounded terrible, but um, yeah, like you can get super scratchy with it, and scratchy sculpty with it. That's not a word. Um, you can get super sculptural with it. And that's mainly the reason why I like this brush. It is very, very natural. And I can just carve and cut, like cut out and cut in, cut out and cut in over and over again with this. It also makes me feel like better about reworking areas. Like I feel like certain brushes you feel like kind of bad when you've worked up all this like texture and like shape and stuff, and then you're just like, ah, it doesn't work. I gotta redo it. And you're like, ah, great, just did all that work just to change it. Like I feel like certain brushes can make you less okay with having to change stuff, even in the early stage, and you're like too precious with it. This doesn't really give me that feeling, which sounds like a backhanded compliment, but this brush makes me feel very secure in my process. I'm very okay with starting over in certain areas, and other brushes cannot provide that feeling. I'm grateful for this one. I think I know the problem. I think as far as lighting goes on Leon's face, it's not as intense as it is on the shirt. Not just value wise. I mean that is part of it. There's a lot of like white here, just pure white, which I will fix. But like currently, um, I think for the lighting that I've given the rest of all of like this area of the shirt and the neck and everything, I think the lighting on the face is still very like tame. Um, I think that was just me playing it a bit safe. Um, I didn't want to mess things up or go too intense and have to lighten it up because that can be annoying. That definitely can be annoying. But I'm just gonna get here and get a little messy. Still not zoomed in, and I'm just gonna darken some things up and kind of push and pull them around and make the lighting more intense. Give him an eyelid item. Congratulations, Leon, on your newfound eyelid. Um, yeah, just gonna punch up these shadows. I think that's really what it was. Just kind of bothering me a little bit. Like it feels less intense than the uh, rest of his body and face and everything. And it's like it needs to be more high contrast, really, just because there is going to be a portion of his face that is kind of on the brighter side, um, because it's closer to the light. But it's like back here, everything because it's faced so far away, or not far away, but it's turned away from the light enough that it needs to be darker, or it should be darker. But I am trying to maintain that sort of like you know uh, form and stuff that I've already established. I don't want to lose that. We want to introduce stronger shadows. Everything. I hope you guys cannot hear that music in the back. That is not me. Okay, spice this up a little bit. Okay. Flip the canvas again. You gotta do this over and over again. You gotta keep it up. Not get too comfortable looking at it in one perspective. And the brain will kind of get used to that, and then it'll start seeing mistakes less. It'll become uh, sort of used to what it's seeing on screen, and you'll be less likely to notice the mistakes. Not impossible, but a lot more difficult. Your brain has been looking at it for so long that you just assume naturally that it is the way it's supposed to be. And that's not always true. So, gotta make sure we get around that and keep our brain, uh, on basically. Yeah, I think I know what I'm having a problem with. I think it's the shadow is like too hard. Like it's not like it's partially a cast shadow here, right? And then I'm just making a layer for this and break down what I mean. This is also this is how you get better artwork, right? Something's off and you know why. Sit there, break it down. Um, so his neck here, like a cylinder, right? But it's also, his head sort of, I don't know what shape to choose for this, but, his head's sitting on top of that. That is not the correct perspective at all. His head's kind of like this, sitting on top of that, right? And you have light coming from basically this way. It's a little farther, you know. So you've got a cast shadow uh, here because this head is blocking the light right here. You get a cast shadow there. But then you also get a form shadow because you draw like a boom, 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 boom. Not making it perfect, but you get some wrapping form there, and there's planes starting around here, I guess, that are starting to turn away from the light. And the farther, the farther it's turned away, the darker it gets. Leon, looking good. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. And welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping by. But so with that, you're going from, a harsh cast shadow from here, from this area. This is a lot of color slapped on top of each other, but you're going from a super harsh cast shadow here into a soft transition here from the cylinder, because cylinder is rounded and therefore the shading on it is going to be a lot more gradual, a lot smoother, a lot softer than a cast shadow. Cast shadows start off very sharp, and the further you get away from the cast shadow, the softer it'll get. And so you'll notice like, the edges get very like blurred the farther away you get from the cast shadow. That's why they look more realistic. So with that, we have a harsh, that was an accident. You have a harsh cast shadow here, and it's fading off, and it's going into a circular, curved form shadow. And so as it goes further down, both just in space, but also as it merges with the cylindrical shadow on the neck, it's going to get softer the farther down it goes. And so it needs to be a more smooth and gradual transition from really sharp up here to really soft down there. That was a very long explanation, but that's essentially what I'm thinking. And it was bothering me for so long because it wasn't gradual enough. I had a little bit of gradation going on, but not enough, I think, that is accurate to real life. That's not what I meant to do. This. Okay. Feels like I just did a whole like art lesson and that was not intentional. Um, I just, these are the things that I do. And I want to be transparent about my process as an artist. I'm not a gatekeeper. Um, this is how, these are things that I do in the middle of my process, my drawings, um, because it helps me. It helps me put into words and it helps me to absorb the information, when I'm critiquing myself and I'm trying to improve. You know, I can't just go, this is off, do better, and then call it a day or move on. I need to know why it's off, and then I need to know what's what's wrong about it and how do I fix it? What's the solution? It's not helpful if someone just tells you that something is wrong or something is off if they don't provide you with, a proper solution to the problem. And that's not all the time, but I'm just saying, like in the sort of like art critique world, it's like just telling someone that something that they've done is off or funky or wrong or whatever, it's not enough. If you're gonna critique someone, make it constructive. Um, if you really think what you're saying is worth saying, anyways. There's a lot of people out there who will just kind of spew out, nonsense to people, claiming to be an authority on a subject and they're not. But if you are actually an authority on the subject, or you feel that you have something, valuable to offer as far as a critique, make sure that you are also giving them some sort of way forward, right? You don't have to be like, oh, I have all the answers to your problem and I can immediately, fix your art and solve all your troubles and turn you into the greatest artist in the world. Nobody's asking for that. But to just sort of like drive by, critique somebody, and not even give them any kind of advice on how to fix the problem that you've pointed out is, I think, more damaging to them than not saying anything at all, in my opinion. I've gotten a lot of critiques like that where it's like, I appreciate you, being bold enough to tell me that you're not liking what I'm doing, I guess, but you've now just left me in a state of like weird unrest because now I feel like I did it wrong or I did something wrong or this piece isn't good according to this professional. But they also didn't tell me how at all I could solve that problem. And I'm stuck because why would I want to move forward? I'm afraid of making that same exact mistake again because I was never given any idea how to fix it. I was just told it's wrong. And now you're kind of just like stuck because you know that most likely without some type of guidance, you're just going to make that same mistake again. And it's not like you can ignore it because before you didn't know that it was a problem. But now that you do, how are you supposed to ignore that? How are you supposed to keep making pieces knowing that there's a glaring issue according to that person in your artwork? You know, I'm saying all this stuff because I was at that point one time. I've been at that point plenty of times, but it sucks. It sucks to be given critique like that and then not be given any advice after about how to go about fixing that thing. It's paralyzing. you really don't know how to move forward. And you can also internalize it because you're like, they didn't give me a solution to this problem that I'm having. Maybe they think that I'm not, I should be better already than this and that I shouldn't have to ask for their help and I should already know. And you start to, develop all these other problems that can come with that. And nobody wants that. I've been there and it's not fun. Art advice is always tricky. Always tricky. I do not really. I've gotten better when it comes to like my feelings about giving art advice to people. Normally, I do not really like giving advice to people, especially when it comes to art. But I realize that I don't consider myself a pro, um, but I do know that given the fact that I'm not a like day one beginner at any of this, there are things that I've learned just due to a number of years that I've poured into this that can be useful to people who are beginners. And I want to help people. And so to, withhold that information from them because of a fear and insecurity that I have would be going against what I believe in and what I want to do. So I have to kind of, fight against myself in that way. Like, it's understandable where that insecurity comes from, but you're also doing more damage by not helping people because there's a lot of good that could be done. Or just, helping a little bit here and there. So I've been, getting better about that. Not that I'm just going around throwing out advice at, people now, pretending to be an authority on any subject. But, you know, I am more open now to people asking me for advice or my thoughts on certain topics within art. Whereas a couple of years ago, probably just a year ago, a singular year ago, the idea of giving advice to people about art in any kind of way was way too scary for me. um, okay, and then due to the fact that I punched up the shadows there, that means I would have to basically make this a stronger shadow. Which I was initially against because I felt like it kind of made him look a bit aged, but I've since changed my mind. And I think it's fine. Make sure that this part is sharp and falls off a little bit. Okay. I am quite fond of the shape that I've made here. Coming from the shadow here all the way down. I am quite fond of that. I like it. Okay. This. I really need to draw Claire Redfield. I need to draw the ladies of Resident Evil. Like, I realize that I don't draw a lot of, or I don't make a lot of finished pieces with women. That's one of the reasons why I'm also doing the God of War Laufey, Laufey, whatever piece. God of War piece because that's not the only reason. Obviously, I just think the game looks amazing, and I just want to stick it to the people who are making, um, certain claims and having certain complaints about the game that wouldn't be around if it was Kratos as the main character. And I feel like at this point, if you're complaining about the wife of the God of War being the main character in the series, considering how much she has been integral to the entire story, um, you need to go and get a life, man. So there's there's that small part of me that wants to do it just to you know I guess in a way do my little part, showing my appreciation and support for the game, but also because I realize that I more often than not draw dudes and not women. And I would like to change that because they're like, I kid you not, there's no shortage of um, women characters that I would love to, like fully paint because I draw plenty of them, like just sketches and stuff. Those don't like you guys don't really see my sketches, um, like my sketchbook stuff and all that, and like the little messy ones I'll do on here in Procreate. You guys really don't see that. Nobody does, except like my brother. um, so you know, but there's like a ton of characters that I would love to and do plan to like fully paint. Um, and I don't want to be the kind of guy who only draws guys. Or the kind of artist, I should say, that only draws guys, doesn't draw anyone. Uh, that would be a little weird to me. So I plan to remedy that. But yes, I definitely do plan to draw most, if not all, of the very amazing women of Resident Evil. Claire's probably going to be the first on the list because of Code Veronica coming up. Technically, I've painted Grace. Um, have I drawn Ada? I feel like I've drawn Ada at some point. Like just casually, like drawn her. Nothing like super finished. Um, yeah, Claire will be first, unless something major changes, which I doubt it will. Um, yeah, Claire's gonna be first, and then after that, hmm, probably Ada. Actually, nah, scratch that. Claire will still definitely be first, but then I will probably draw Sheva. I have a very, very specific gripe with Resident Evil 5, and it has nothing to do with the game itself. Um, it is the fact that the cover of Resident Evil 5 um, puts Chris and Jill uh, like they're on the cover. It's Chris and Jill. Um, despite, outside of DLC, um, Jill not being a playable character in the game. So she's literally on the cover as if you're going to play as her in the game, in the main game. And you don't. You play as Chris and you play as Sheva. But, I'm not going to say why that's probably the case, but I have, a small hint as to why Sheva is not featured on the cover of the game when she's literally the only other playable character in the main story. And that always bothered me. That it seemed like, Capcom wasn't confident with putting Sheva on the cover of the game that she's literally the, main character in. So after I paint Claire, I will be essentially redoing the Resident Evil 5 cover, but with Chris and Sheva, the main characters in the game. Because that always bothered me. Like this is literally the cover to, promote the game, and one of the one of the two main characters is missing and is replaced with a character that shows up for probably 5 minutes total in the entire game. That to me is just bonkers. Like I said, I'm not gonna pretend like I don't know why. That's probably the case. But for my own enjoyment, I am going to remedy that, and then I will get hired by Capcom and start doing illustrations for them. Man, that would be so cool. They closed down their U.S. studio. Team 7, was it? That was the like code name. Uh, that got cut down after, or not cut down, got shut down after Final Fight 3. Is it Final Fight 3? I believe it's Final Fight 3. It's just weird knowledge that I'm sitting on. Like, when in my life is someone going to ask me about Capcom's US studio? Like, other than maybe Capcom, who is going to be asking me about this stuff? Probably no one. but I still know it. Why? I don't know. I like researching this kind of stuff. Interestingly, but I do sometimes sort of like sit and wonder why the heck do I know this? When is this information going to be useful? But it's fun to know. Cursed with knowledge, as Thanos would say. Completely unrelated tangent, but Thanos in the MCU, man, he's he in, like to me, he has not aged well, like as a character. Um, just yeah, over time, like thinking more about it, I still love Endgame as a movie, but Thanos as a character, I'm not a fan at all, really, anymore. At one point, I would say I was, but that time has passed, um, and now I'm kind of just like confused because I feel like he was, he had the makings of like a really, really strong character, and there's still aspects of him that I do like, but for the most part, I'm just like, man, this guy kind of sucks. Not like, oh, like he's a villain, he's bad, he sucks. Just like basically my main reason for feeling this way is that given how smart he clearly is and has been for pretty much all his life, or at least like, a good portion of his younger years. Um, how is that the best solution? How is wiping out half of the entire universe the best solution that this guy could come up with to solve, overpopulation? Like obviously, it wasn't really his solution. It was kind of, the writers and directors' solution to the made up problem that they had. But I feel as though it kind of worked against him because you see just how efficient he is and how strategic and logical he is in so many other areas. And then you see him go and pull stunt like this, where it's like, just wipe out half the universe. That'll solve overpopulation. It's like, will it really though? Like, ironically, it's there's a line that Ultron says in Age of Ultron, that I think illustrates the point I'm making, where um, well, Thor says, if you want peace, um, or if it's like if it's peace you want, then like let's maintain it, or something like that. And Ultron says, I think you're confusing peace with quiet. And that line has always stuck with me because it's like I think that applies to so much in our lives, where it's like we confuse peace or things being okay because nobody's talking about them. and that can apply to like so many things: the world, state of the world, friend groups, relationships. It can be applied to so many different things, but there is this just sort of assumption that like things are okay because nobody's saying otherwise, or at least to our knowledge, um, depending on the thing. And I feel like Thanos' solution to overpopulation was just kind of like, well, if I don't hear about it because I just wipe out half the universe, it'll be all right. Like that'll work enough. Like I never saw, like he never solved overpopulation. He put a band-aid over it and is basically just hoping to live out the rest of his life. And it's like, bro, what happens when, let's say all of the universe decides to, repopulate everywhere? Because I don't think people are just going to stop having children altogether. There might be some, like alien societies out there or something where they're like, hey, Thanos wiped out, or like we lost half of the population. Like, let's, start like a whole movement where it's like we don't, you know, we like control just how many people are born at a given time or whatever, blah, blah, blah. They could write that in. That could be I would buy that, you know, but outside of that, like people aren't just going to stop having children. And so let's imagine, like more time goes by and the world kind of repopulates. The universe actually repopulates. What's the solution, Thanos? But by the time that happens, he'll probably be dead. So it's just kind of like, well, I'm not alive, so it's not my problem kind of thing. I'm not actually going to fix the problem that I, was basically whining about for the entire movie and tried to use as justification for my horrible actions. I didn't even fix it by the end of the movie when I was, gifted with, these extraordinary abilities to actually do something about it. Um, I didn't fix the problem at all. I actually just put a band-aid over it and then said, basically I'm going to die before the problem actually needs to be addressed again. And that part confuses me because I'm like, this guy seems like, he was built up to be this like, exceptionally smart character. And even in Endgame, that was, sort of built upon, uh, where, he could have reverse engineers the Pym particles and, you know, figures out time travel by himself with really like little context at all. So this guy is just like, obviously he didn't like do it by himself. He had people do it for him, but you know what I mean. Like whether it's him doing it himself or him finding the resources, he's very, very intelligent. And the best he could do to solve overpopulation was just put a blanket over it and call it a day. That just feels like it goes against his entire character. That to me feels like someone who considers themselves like a punk or rebel telling people to just like trust the government and like let them like like if there's a problem in their community and this rebel character was like just wait for the government to fix it. Like, huh? Excuse me? That's the best you got? just wait for the government to fix it. Like, okay, all right, I guess, sure. After they had, spent, you know, large majority of their life complaining about whatever problem or thing that they weren't happy with seeing in their community. They're just like, basically, I gave money to the government and told them to fix it, and then they just go and like disappear and live on a farm, essentially. That's what it felt like. So over time, I've become, less fond of Thanos as a character in the MCU, not in the comics. Different character. I actually really do like the sort of comic version of him, and his reason for uh, everything he did in the Infinity Saga or whatever you want to call it in the comic books. Infinity War. Um, really, really dug that. And I also got to meet Jim Starlin, who is the creator of Thanos. Um, it, I knew I was going to meet him because it was at a convention. And so I had done my research beforehand, looked up a lot of the people who I didn't, fully, like know or I wasn't fully familiar with. And Jim Starlin was one of those people. And there's still a little bit of research and, started like, looking at, sort of some breakdowns and explanations of, like Thanos in the comics and, what he did and how he differs from the MCU and things like that. And I actually thought it was really cool because I feel like, the MCU version of him, like they have to create some weird, arbitrary, like problem in order to justify Thanos and have him be like this really intelligent guy in the way that we see him in the movie. Whereas in the comic, it's kind of just like this guy's very resourceful and clearly smart, but he's also kind of just insane, and that's okay. Like that's just part of it. That comes with the rest of him. It's a package deal. It's like I'm really smart, I'm really powerful, I've learned a lot, trained a lot, all this stuff. I can go toe to toe with some of your heaviest hitters in this universe, but I'm also just insane, and I feel like it worked that way. Like I can buy into that. Like you have to be kind of crazy in order to do all this stuff, and still not choose to be like a good guy. um, Whereas in the MCU, it's kind of like because they wanted to treat him as this sort of like uh, empathetic villain that you kind of like understand or can like like see his side or whatever. They had to create some arbitrary problem that didn't exist in the comic version to make him seem more like calm and reasonable and he's actually like looking out for the rest of the universe and all this stuff. And it's like, no, in the comics, this guy is just insane. And that's cool. He's a villain. Like, not that all villains have to be like mentally ill, but there's usually a little bit something wrong with them. And it's okay sometimes when a villain is just a villain and there's no justifying it. You can add like you can add some bits to their character that make them like, oh, this is interesting. And, I'm intrigued by this character and I do, want to see what this character does, but you don't have to make us like want the villain to win necessarily, or we don't have to feel bad for them. It's totally fine to not feel bad for a villain, especially when they're the antagonist. of these characters that we've literally grown to know and love for 10 years, because Iron Man was 2008 and Infinity War was 2018 or 2017. So it's either 9 or 10 years, give or take. It just feels like, I don't know. It just feels wrong to me to this day. It would have been so cool to see not only the introduction of like Death as a character, where we finally get into this sort of like weird and wacky, world of Marvel, where it's like you've got like physical representations of all these like things, um, but also to see like a character like Thanos who's like he's kind of just a whack job. And there's also like I can't even lie. After finding out the real reason in the comic books for why Kratos or not Kratos, jeez, Thanos did everything that he did in Infinity Gauntlet and all that stuff, low key, it was more relatable and understandable than the events of Infinity War and Endgame. In the comics, he literally was just trying to impress a girl. And I mean, I'm not at the point in my life where I'm going out of my way to, wipe out half the universe to impress women, but I can't pretend like I've never tried to do things to impress people. That's relatable. That is absolutely relatable. Someone you think you click with and you really are interested in, and you know that they're, interested in like a certain thing that you may not be a big expert on, or maybe you are. But you know how much it means to them. You know that, something big and dramatic a little bit, would probably interest them and you want them to be impressed. You go out of your way to do something like that. People have done that before. Historically. Happens a lot. Um, that is relatable. Is it extreme? Yes, but I've seen people go to extreme measures to impress people. So that is not unrealistic at all. So I feel like had they gone down the route of like Thanos is doing all of this because he wants to impress a girl, it might make him seem like a bit of a loser. I'm totally aware of that. But at the same time, I feel like at the end of the day, that would somehow be more like resonating with people than what we got. Felt like the ball got dropped. And then on top of that, they didn't make it really any better by kind of joking about all the stuff that happened in Infinity War and Endgame with like all the movies that came after it. Like they kind of treated it as this thing that's just like, oh, haha, we lost a bunch of people. Like, yeah, they're back, but wasn't that so funny when we just lost half our population, and now the people who are back are just kind of suffering or having to deal with the consequences of, oh, you just lost your house because you didn't exist for 5 years, or your wife moved on without you because, again, just literally didn't exist for 5 years. Like we could have had whole stories about that and showing how realistically that solved nothing and it made it actually more difficult for people to recover, move on, and made their lives worse because not only did they not know or not even think that their people that they lost were coming back, but when they did, now they have to deal with the fact that a lot of them just moved on without them because to them they were basically, as close to dead as you could possibly get without being literally dead. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk about why Thanos sucks. Feel free to like and subscribe for more belligerent rants about Marvel Comics characters. I think that's about all I'll do for now. As far as this Leon goes, I'm probably never going to take it any further than this, to be honest. Um, Not because I don't like it or anything, but it's literally like it. It served its purpose. Like you got to know when to put the pencil down. You got to know when something is done. Like, sometimes they're just paintings that serve a specific purpose, and they're not meant to be more than that. And this is one of those uh, paintings where I'm not making this for a client. Um, I'm not making it, for anyone really except me. I'm kind of using it just to, like I said, it was a test kind of for me to see how, how quickly I could take something from start to finish. Um, with this current process that I have, you know. And finish, in this case just means this basically, not the most polished painting I've ever done in my life. But it is at a point where I can sort of look at it and be, mostly satisfied. And that's what I was trying to test. How quickly can I get to that point where I can look at it and go like, this is a good point. I could like post this online, and kind of leave it at that. Or I could take this from here and just go straight to color, you know? Like that's where I was trying to get to, and I wanted to see you know, how long that would take. And so all things considered, that was quicker than, I won't say quicker than I expected, but it was surprisingly quick for me. I am satisfied with the amount of time that I spent on this and the results that I got from it. And now at this point, I'm just kind of like, there's a, there's, like the hair here, very bright, up in this area. It's a lot of just like white space. I was complaining about that earlier with the face. Um, but that's just because this is one step in sort of a larger process that I would do if I was doing like a fully rendered finished piece. Um, if you want to know what that would be, uh, this will be the last thing I do, and then I'm probably going to call it there because I am getting pretty tired and I've got some stuff that I need to do. Not going to disclose what that is because it's a secret. You will see in the coming weeks. I want to say, like days is a bit too soon, but weeks sounds more reasonable for me. Um, but you will see it um, at some point, and hopefully you like it. I think it'll be pretty enjoyable. But what was I saying? Where was I going with all this? But yeah, I can't stay here streaming forever. So I will basically show you really quickly, if anybody's watching, where I would go with this after this step, where I'm like, okay, I've done all this, and now I want to take it to like a point where I can, like start coloring. Not that I can't right now. Like this is just like a step where I could go straight to coloring, and I would be pretty pretty okay with that. Like there wouldn't be many like changes I would have to make. Um, so like yeah, from here, like this is a stage where I would be comfortable going the color because there's a certain amount of painting over that you got to do anyways. So um, I'm happy enough with this stage of it that I could comfortably go to the coloring stage and finish it up basically. Um, but let me just do this really quickly, and then I will show you what that next step would be. I just want to clean up this eye real quick because eye is kind of a focal point on the face, and you know you want to make sure that doesn't look too. Oh my goodness! Completely forgot that my iPad was at 5% and it just died. So give me 1 second. I'm going to plug it in and what you call it? I'm gonna plug it in and then turn it back on. Give me 1 second. Completely forgot that it died or that it was going to die. That is pretty on brand for me. This is something that happened a lot when I'm not streaming. I would get the notification that my iPad is like at 20%, and I'm like, okay, I got a little bit of time. Then I get the notification that's at 10%, and I'm like, okay, I still got some time. It's all right. 10 more minutes, and then I'll be all right. Then it gets to 5, and I'm like, okay, now I need to put it on the charger, but let me just finish up this thing real quick, and then boom, it dies. So that's exactly what just happened. Um, okay, let's open up Procreate. Thankfully, Procreate is really good with like saving what you've done. I haven't had a point where I like did a bunch of work and then my iPad died, and I reopened the project and it's like all that progress is gone. I got to start over from like 30 minutes ago. Never had that. It's fantastic to me. Um, Glad that I've never had to deal with that kind of thing. So give me 1 second. It's loading right now. But yeah, so the last thing I'll do is I will show you very quickly, what my next step would be to take this to like a finished piece. You know, like let's say like I was doing a commission or something. You um, and then after that we're gonna check the file basically and see how long did I actually spend on this piece. Um, One, just to show you, what is possible. You know, um, Not to say that if you follow all the steps that I did, you'll be able to draw at the same pace as me. There's a lot of experience that informs what I'm doing that'll allow me to work at a certain pace. But um, I know I'm the kind of person that sometimes just needs to see that something is possible, and that does a lot for just my confidence and my motivation. Um, so I figured that might be something that you guys can relate to or resonate with. where it's like, you just see that you keep working at it and you build up your skills. At a certain point, you can start to draw, you know, make things that are satisfactory to you within a certain amount of time. You don't have to dedicate, days and weeks just to make something you're happy with. You definitely do not want to do that all the time. Sometimes I want to sit down, have a, you know, few hour session and come out with something that I like. Okay. Looks like we're back. Let me turn that on. Make sure that's working. Okay. We are back. Okay. Switch the screen. Render. Hmm. That's interesting. It should be back. Yeah, let's. Okay, that's not working. Let's try it again. Huh. Weird. Okay, think I got it. Might be a little laggy, but I think we are back. I think we are back. Bit slow. I don't know why I was acting like that. Let's get that full screen, and then boom. Okay, I think now should be good. Let's move it like that. Okay, what was I doing before? I was so rudely interrupted due to the consequences of my own actions. Oh yeah, eyelashes. So I'm gonna make them super defined because I just want them to kind of be implied. But this brush is too small. I just want to get some definition in there that is too defined. It's kind of a Capcom thing where like I noticed that the bottom eyelid is always kind of like darkened, or like the area underneath the bottom eyelid is always darkened. And I've just kind of become I'm quite fond of it. I try to include it uh, when I can in one of my pieces, but it's definitely just a taste thing. Let's put that eye back in, the iris back in, pupil. And then I'm cheating this as far as like probably maybe wouldn't see the highlight like that on the face, but I'm kind of throwing it in there anyways, um, just to bring out the eye. That would sort of be the focal point if I were to choose a focal point. Um, but realistically, it's kind of one of those like bending reality things. Maybe not the most realistic thing ever, but you know, it looks cool. And what was I gonna do? Flip this. That looks decent to me. I'm gonna bring that lip down a little bit. Just wanna change up that silhouette a bit. Yeah. I want to make his nose pointier. Do I want to do that? Do I like that decision? Let's see. Am I happy with that? I could get on board with that. I think I want to bring his whole like mouth kind of up. And over like that. Sorry if you heard that. That was my earphones begging me to charge them. So because of that, I'm going to speed run this next part because I would hate for them to die in the middle of this. But after that, I'm going to disappear. So let me stop noodling this. He says as he continues to noodle. Basically, so what I would do from here, right? We've got this in black and white. What I would do essentially is, well, what do I want to do? Okay, how many steps can I cut out? Okay, let's just pretend I'm going to take this straight to color. First thing I would do is I'm going to go to color balance, and I already have some color jitter on my brush. So it's not super easy to tell. Actually, I didn't use color jitter at all because I chose the wrong brush. Correct brush, but didn't have color jitter on it, so that's my fault. I noticed something was off, and I didn't bother to check, so that's on me. But basically, color balance can do the trick. Um, and I'm just gonna kind of like move around the colors until the values are something that I'm happy with. So I'm not like, yes, I'm thinking about the colors and how they make me feel, but it is also about the values that are associated with those colors that I'm looking for. So it's not purely just, oh, I'm moving it until it's a color I'm happy with. I'm kind of feeling it out. But it is partially about the colors. There's a small part of it that is about the colors, but it's not the only thing I'm looking for. That's basically what I'm trying to get at. Um, yeah, like see if I go to yellow with the highlights, then now they're darker than they need to be. That makes sense. Like, you see how they start to pop out, and it's like, okay, now that just completely ruins the values that I had, right? So I'm not thinking about colors. I'm seeing this in black and white still, even with all this. I want a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You know, something like that. Um, and I mean, you can keep going back and forth with this forever until you're satisfied. But I mean, this is pretty much where I would want it. Then basically, I would turn this to multiply. I'm doing this really fast because I think my earphones are gonna die. Um, and I would do like, I can't do it today on this stream like really cleanly, but I would basically just get like a skin tone I'm just gonna do this like really roughly, but skin tone. His hair is kind of dirty blonde, whatever color. But you'll see that like having it on multiply and also having some colors in there, like on that layer that we just did, will kind of add to the colors that we lay underneath. The shirt is like a really, trying to do this really, really fast. If my earphones disconnect, I'll just, keep going and you can kind of just see what I'm doing. I don't really need to like over explain it, but you'll kind of see what I'm doing. Maybe I'll like write it out on the canvas. But basically, I'll do something like that. Just get like the, basic colors laid in. If I don't like the colors that I chose, I'll, like tweak the, hue, the saturation. And I would technically do this all on separate layers. So like the hair would have a separate layer, skin would have a separate layer, shirt, that kind of thing. And then, uh, what you call it? From there, I would just start noodling as far as like, okay, well, this is skin, right? So there are, like color zones on the skin. So, we're going to get a little bit of red in the, like certain areas where the blood vessels are, popping or whatever. I don't know what the term is, but, the lips are going to be a little bit pink. That kind of thing. Um, the hair, might have a little bit of, depending on what the color the light source of the, environment is, might have a little orange in there, you know, stuff like that. We might even throw a little bit of like blue, or wait, his eyebrows don't have any color. Just realized that. That's fun. Um, might throw a little bit of blue in the, in his skin down like here because his shirt. Basically, that's the short version of it. You know, there's also colors under the skin. So closer down to here would be a little bit cooler tone, anyways. Um, and then you get a little bit of orange, technically, near the top part of his head. Um, basically something like that. And then I would add, keep adding little like washes and layers on top of like, here's some blues, here's some, on a multiply probably or overlay, and just get some blues in there, get some purples in there, some yellows, things like that. Whatever just kind of, fits. Like I'm thinking about the lighting of the environment, thinking about, the like color treatment of like skin and all this other stuff and like how it works in real life. And, laying that kind of stuff in to all the textures and, the different textures in the piece. So the skin, the hair, the holster, um, you know, the shirt, all those different things. Um, till it feels like, properly like a good sort of test of like, okay, is this working the way it's supposed to? Is this like, um, does this look right? Can I move on to the next step? Is just like, does it look like I could stop here? You know, like you have to kind of ask yourself that. Like, could I stop here and call this whatever it was supposed to be in the first place? If it was supposed to be a sketch, then it's like, can I stop here and call it a sketch and feel satisfied with that? So people be able to look at this and go like, that's acceptable as a sketch. That looks like a sketch. Or just like, oh, here's a quick, painting or speed paint or whatever, blah blah blah. Does it look like that? Like whatever the intent was, does it fit that? Does it look like, oh, I could stop here and call this insert random art term, and then at that point, if the answer is yes, then you can stop basically or go to the next step, you know? But this looks, okay. It's lacking highlights, which is, the main thing for me. Um, and it also looks different on my iPad compared to how I'm seeing it on the like stream screen. A little bit brighter, I think. And some of the like overall it's warmer, which doesn't look like 100% right to me. But outside of that, I think it looks pretty good. Like I'm happy with the way this looks because it looks like what I wanted it. It isn't finished, but it looks like the thing that I wanted it to be, which was kind of just a quick test and challenge for myself to see how quickly could I get to something that looks like it's in the vein of like a finished piece of mine, but in a shorter amount of time. And so I like this. I'm happy with it. I think because I haven't really finessed the colors, I like it more in black and white. Um, but the colors aren't bad. There's just not a lot, but there are a few more steps I would add to this to then like post it, I guess. If I wasn't doing black and white, I would post it straight like this and be fine. But with the colors, I would add like just a little bit of like highlights and some more color variation, some of the other like textures like the hair and the shirt and the holster, and then I would call it a day. But with all that said, let's check the canvas information and see how long this actually took. I have the stream number as far as how long this took, but I want to see the sort of in-app. Um, oh, you know what I just thought about? It's the fact that I've drawn like other things in this file, so the total time is going to be a lot more than it actually is. Like, see, this says almost 8 hours. What I can do though is I can go to the time lapse replay and I can just scroll all the way to when this started, which is basically about 6 hours and 8 minutes in, and then huh, okay, 6 hours and 8 minutes in is when this started, according to them, and then it finished at 10 hours and 27 minutes. So that's 4 hours and 19 minutes. Um, which is interesting because I've been streaming for almost 3 hours. Like it's coming up on 3 hours, which means that basically, according to that, the time lapse is wrong because I only started drawing this Leon after I started streaming. I didn't start it before. And if we take off, a little bit of time for like the coloring and a little extra stuff I did, get it ready for the coloring part. Basically, you could say this is under 3 hours, which is insane to me, actually. Like, not hyping myself up, not trying to be like braggadocious or anything, but I expected it to take way longer. And so the fact that within basically 3 hours, less than 3 hours, I can get something like this and go like onto coloring or just call it a day and like kind of just like clean it up a little bit, polish it is pretty wild to me because that's including the sketch. Like, it's not like, oh, it took me 3 hours to paint after I did my sketch, but the sketch was also part of the 3 hours. That's pretty cool to me. So having that knowledge now that I can basically go from something like this to something like this, you know, within 3 hours is, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of myself for being able to do that, I think that shows that I've come a very long way in my art journey. Not to say that this is like a masterpiece or anything, but just to know that I've been wanting to, sort of be faster when it comes to art for a long time. I felt like I would always take forever to do every piece. And I kind of get caught up in details and carried away. But to know that, you know, under pressure too, because I'm streaming, I can do something like this in under 3 hours is, I'm happy about that. I'm very happy about that. Um, so yeah, that's really cool. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna call it there. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Really appreciate you for sticking around, watching me rant about Thanos being a terrible villain, and Kingdom Hearts and a little bit of Resident Evil lore. um, might stream tomorrow. Can't promise that I will, but I might stream tomorrow. Um, but other than that, yeah, this was really fun. I will be streaming again. I have, no shortage of paintings that I need to do. And I have no problem streaming them. I've gotten comfortable enough with streaming now, that I can paint and stream at the same time. And I do enjoy it, being able to interact with you guys and everything. But yeah, that's pretty much all for tonight. Or this morning, because it's 1:13 now. Um, but yeah, thank you guys again for stopping by. Really appreciate it. Hope you have a great night or morning, wherever you are. And see you next time.